Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak to the Major Sports Facilities and Other Legislation Amendment Bill 2016. This is it's a bill that covers a number of different pieces of legislation, and it particularly I'd like to address some of the aspects in relation to the gambling aspects. It does amend the way in which tax is calculated under the Gaming Machine Act 1991, the Gaming Machines Act for clubs and additional premises, as well as amending the Keno Act 1996, the Keno Act, to provide that the Keno licensee may enter into jackpot pooling arrangements with Keno licences in other jurisdictions. I'll come back to some of the detail of that in a moment, but on the day that the race that stops a nation, the Melbourne Cup, has been run, we've all had a little bit of fun. I suspect a few across the chamber have had a little bit of a flutter, some more of a flutter than others, but I think it's a day when we celebrate this iconic Australian event. Now, I don't mind my once-a-year flutter on the Melbourne Cup. I know some who are more regular racegoers do so more than I, but I support responsible gambling where people have full control of their faculties and don't flog off the family home. There is a matter, though, that gravely concerns me, and that is, I think, an abuse of the advertising of sports betting where it is just shoved down your throat. I think it's time that we saw the sports betting and the odds that have been, particularly we've seen in the last few weeks, but is proliferating on our television through sporting events when young people in particular are watching. It's time that this was banned. I have so many complaints I hear from parents, but quite frankly, it's over the top. How can you expect people to take that token advice about responsibly gambling when there's nothing responsible at all about the advertising that is being put down people's throats? It's been acknowledged that there's been quite an increase in this particular type of sports betting advertisements. Across Australia in 2012, 3,069 individual sports betting advertisements, I am advised, were relayed over all forms of media, not including social media communications. These included 528 individual sports betting advertisements, which were collectively played over 20,000 times on free-to-air TV and more frequently on pay TV. The value of sports betting advertising on television quadrupled between 2010 and 2012.
Sorry, Member for Maroochydore. Members in the chamber, the member for Maroochydore is having to yell to be heard. Can we please keep the noise down? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, for your protection. According to a parliamentary library brief, an audit of 8 AFL match broadcasts in 2012 identified a total of 50.5 marketing communications promoting 7 wagering brands, totalling 4.8 minutes per match. 4 live AFL matches held at 2 major stadiums in 2011 promoted 9 wagering brands during an average of 59 marketing communications. An audit of 2 weeks of televised NRL and AFL programs in 2012 identified 72 gambling communications, mainly for corporate bookmakers, constituting 2.5% of broadcast time. I think it's timely to raise this because, as I said, I don't mind a flutter at Melbourne Cup time, and I don't begrudge people enjoying access to their sports and certainly access to responsible gaming. But it's got out of hand in regard to the advertisement of sports betting on our television, and it's time it was certainly banned in the time when young people in particular can watch it, because it's ingraining in their way of life habits where it won't be responsible. And we do know that those who don't have control in regard to responsible gaming, it destroys lives. It's about balance. The advertising isn't balanced, and we need to see a change in that regard. In respect to this bill seeks to amend the Gaming Machine Act to adjust tax methodology to the benefit of clubs that operate more than one premise. Now, it's been forecast that this is likely to see a reduction in return to the government. It is intended, though, to balance existing control approach to club expansions. Now, obviously, this has been through the parliamentary committee process. There have been submissions lodged in this regard. I've sought advice from the Minister previously, the Attorney-General actually, in respect to what the gross turnovers of pokies is in my electorate. And what we've seen as far as the turnover, there's about 5,700, well, I'll read the figure, 572,348,697 is the turnover in the gaming machine revenue in the Maroochydore electorate for 2014-15. Now, of course, a large proportion of that does return to people, but there's a substantial amount that still doesn't return into the pockets of people. I also acknowledge that there are some excellent clubs that are involved in providing beautiful facilities that service my electorate and many other areas that are largely financed through their gaming machines in conjunction with terrific hospitality facilities. I know certainly a number of my local clubs do an outstanding job, and they give back to the community over and above that which is legally required as part of the formulas of their gaming machine licence, and that which is sent back to communities through the Gaming Machine Benefit Fund. So there are many good corporate citizens in this space, and I acknowledge them and I'm very grateful for them. But it is timely always for us to say that with the upsurge in gaming in our areas, we should never be frightened to say, how do we ensure that those who are most vulnerable aren't made more vulnerable? And that's why I've raised that issue, in particular in respect to advertising. It is time, I believe, particularly in regard to the advertising we see on our multimedia platforms, for consideration to be given to those who are vulnerable, but to the next generation of young people who are learning from their adults, learning from those around them about how to manage their money. And responsibility in gaming is being able to say no when people have gone too far, and know that it's taking $1 out of the pocket of literally the children's money to pay their food and to pay their rent. Responsibility is about governments also ensuring that on behalf of our communities there is always a watchful eye that's reflected in good legislation, but also with appropriate monitoring that has the enforcement where those breaches are made, where it is inappropriate.
I call the member for Morayfield.